It's Armored Encounter for the Magnavox Odyssey 2 from 1978, and this game certainly looks like the Magnavox attempt to compete with Atari and their classic game Combat for the Atari 2600. Actually, I'm not sure which one came out first, but I like Combat a lot more than Armored Encounter. It's not uncommon for games back in the late 70s and early 80s to be very similar to each other. And if this was exactly like Combat for the Atari, I'd have to say it was a good game because I love Combat. The problem here is that 1, we don't have invisible tanks, and 2, there's no ricocheting bullets. That pretty much takes all the fun out of this game. The guided missiles aren't half bad. In fact, they're pretty good. The guided missiles are the highlight of Armored Encounter. To guide the missiles, you fire using the action button on your Magnavox controller, and then you can guide the shot by steering it left or right with your joystick. All the while, your tank spins in circles. Just like a real tank. This is the video game cartridge for Sub Chase and Armored Encounter for the Magnavox Odyssey 2, and it's got a nice reflective surface so you can see me in the camera waving at you. Hello. And we have tanks, we have airplanes bombing things, and submarines. So that's pretty much a winning combination. Really, the only thing that could improve this is ninjas. And I don't think really ninjas were as popular in the 70s, regrettably, at least not for video games. 1978 is the copyright on this. Let's take a look at the instruction manual here and learn how to play Armored Encounter, which comes on the same cartridge as Sub Chase, so it's well, it's sort of a win-win situation, maybe, depending on how you look at it. Terrific graphics. Once again, there's a futuristic space tank or something there, shooting laser beams with like a Silverhawk's front end on that thing. Open this up. Their instruction manuals are always highly entertaining. Let's take a look here at number 3. The electronic tanks are programmed to simulate the operation of real tanks with a remarkable degree of authenticity. Their marketing department must have been the most entertaining place to work. They had no restrictions. A real tank is turned by slowing down one of the treads and speeding up the other. Your electronic tank is turned the same way. No, it's not. Push the joystick of the hand control to the right and the tank will rotate clockwise to the right. And then you can probably figure out how to turn left. Push the joystick backwards to shift the tank's engines into reverse and make it go backward. Who are they kidding? Seriously. You can play over mountainous terrain with more complex barriers which will stop both tanks and their awesome firepower. And then they give you a listing here of all the different versions of this game, which is very similar to Combat and has simple barriers with guided missiles. The guided missiles were probably the most fun, to be honest. And there's the minefield. Got to watch out for those. And then we have another nice image here of the futuristic space tank, which is pretty cool. Can't go wrong with a futuristic space tank with airbrushing in front of it. This is a 2-player game only, and one of the biggest problems with Armored Encounter is that if you happen to encounter your friend at close range and you're firing back and forth, the game is pretty much over. You just sit there and shoot at each other and watch your tanks explode because the tanks can't get out of the way quickly enough to actually get out of the way quickly enough to not get destroyed. I could have said that smoother, but I didn't. Similar to Combat, there's a number of variations in gameplay. They put walls representing mountains up on screen. There's a mode where there's X's, which represent landmines. But if it was the year 1978 and all that you owned was a Magnavox Odyssey 2, this is the closest you're going to get to Combat. And the guided missiles, as I mentioned, are still the highlight of the game. They're a lot of fun to shoot people from behind the mountains.